Meanwhile, as the Reverend mentioned, Latinos, also played a big role in this election. On the Republican side, they rode the wave to a much higher profile for the GOP, aside, obviously, for Marco Rubio's impressive victory in the Florida Senate race. New Mexico's Susana Martinez becomes the nation's first Latina governor, while Brian Sandoval becomes Nevada's first ever Hispanic or Latino governor also. Both are Republicans. There will also be 5 new GOP Hispanic members of the House, 2 from Texas. That's Bill Flores and Francisco Canseco. Jaime Herrera becomes the first Latina to represent Washington State. Raul Labrador from Idaho and David Rivera of Florida. Again, all Republicans.
All Republicans in Republican districts.
In Republican districts, but, brown faces.
Brown faces, which is good. It shows that the Republican Party is learning to vote for people of color. The question will be, as it was with J.C. Watts and then Michael Steele as chairman, and with the Latinos, is will they be able to shift voters in the Latino and African-American community? There's no sign of that from this election at all.
So to you, what you see in the Republican side, black and brown, is just window dressing?
No, what I see is black and browns won seats, but that does not mean that there's a shift in black and brown voters.
On the other side of the aisle, no doubt, the large Latino turnout made the major difference for Senate Democrats. Michael Bennet, Colorado. Harry Reid, his job was saved in Nevada, no doubt about it, by the Latino turnout, the overwhelmingly pro-Reid turnout in Nevada, and Governor-elect Jerry Brown in California, and also Barbara Boxer in California. Also, their job saved largely by Latinos. And from Fresno, California, we're joined by Congressman Devin Nunes, whose district, incidentally, holds more Latinos than any Republican in Congress. Congressman, welcome back to the Congress. Thank you for being on the show. What do you think about what the Reverend says, that the minority faces so far probably just window dressing?
Well, good evening to you, Geraldo and Reverend. Look, I think the Reverend said it right. This election was a big election for Republicans. We have a changing face. We also elected several women across the country. So this is good for the Republican Party. We're younger. We have different gender now. We're looking at the most Hispanics. A third of the Hispanics in Congress now are Republicans. And not to mention, you have 2 African Americans that are also Republicans now. So this was a great year for the Republican Party in diversity.
In diversity, but what about substance? Is it just window dressing, as the Reverend suggests, Congressman?
Well, I just can't imagine that we would win 2 governorships, all of these seats in the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, and for it just to be window dressing. The fact of the matter is that most immigrants, and I happen to represent a huge immigrant population in the San Joaquin Valley of California. When they come to this country, like my family, they're Democrats. And I don't know why. That's a trend that's developed over time. But by and large, this is, as people get here, they become accustomed and they discover that they don't want big government. And Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats promise big government. And those people that are entrepreneurial don't want big government, and that's why you're seeing the diversity in the Republican Party.
Okay, well, let's debate that as the Reverend is eager to jump in. Let me take a commercial break, and then we'll continue our discussion. Also coming up, what's the Tea Party to do now that it's the party in power in D.C.? A lot going on today.
Winner last night, women, who long ago proved capable of big gubernatorial and senatorial victories, but last night finally achieved parity with men in the category of blowing a tremendous amount of one's own money with nothing to show for it. We did it, girls, we did it. We shattered the waste ceiling.
With those ladies leading the way, the results proved money did not buy happiness.
God bless you, God bless California, and God bless America.
In California, former eBay CEO Meg Whitman lost the governor's race despite shattering the national record and spending a total of $163 million. An incredible $140 million of it, her own money. More than 6 times the $25 million Jerry Brown spent on his winning campaign. While on the East Coast, wrestling exec Linda McMahon forked over $47 million of her own money, about $90 per vote, and still got crushed in the Connecticut Senate race by Richard Blumenthal, whose entire campaign cost only $6 million. Florida Democrat Jeff Green spent a whopping $24 million and never even made it out of the Senate primary.
Florida is open for business.
But it wasn't all bad news for this year's big spenders. Florida Republican Rick Scott spent $74 million of his own fortune, over 8 times his opponent Alex Singh. But Scott at least walked away governor of the Sunshine State. In all, about $4 billion was spent on the campaigns, setting a new midterm record. Perhaps now the country can focus on issues like the economy.
Well, the federal government announced that it will pump an additional $600 billion into the economy. I guess they feel they have to make up for what Meg Whitman isn't spending anymore.
Pretty funny. Congressman Devin Nunes out in Fresno, California, joins me along with David Webb of Tea Party 365 and the Reverend Al Sharpton of the National Action Network. Congressman Nunes, putting aside the money and all that stuff for now, what about the issue of the Tea Party and how will they toe the line? Will your colleagues who came up through that unconventional route, will they become conventional politicians, Congressman?
Well, I do think it's important to remember, when I was first elected, you were considered a right-wing kook if you were talking about abortion issues or gun issues, and that's what made you an extreme Republican. If you were talking about economic issues only and not talking about social issues, then you were considered a moderate. The Tea Party comes along, which is a broad spectrum of folks that are basically figured out that if we don't rein in government spending, the whole country is going to collapse of its own weight. And so now I find it interesting that now people that are only talking about economic issues are now deemed like some right-wing crazies. I think what happened this election is simply that the country's a center-right country. President Obama was governing to the extreme left, led by a San Francisco liberal. And essentially the country just reverted back to where it was. It's a center-right country, and we put a lot of folks in that care about limited government. And that's really what the Tea Party's about.
But let me ask you this, Congressman. Isn't the Tea Party phenomenon almost wholly included? Now, clearly, that's what generated the energy on the right, on the conservative side, on the Republican side. But isn't the Tea Party phenomenon, wasn't it basically, I mean, I've heard expressions like political cannibalism, that it's all about the Republicans against the Republicans, like Delaware and like Nevada, where candidates who presumably would have had a better chance against the entrenched Democrat, instead you had a funkier candidate and they fared less well, Congressman?
Well, I would say this, that every state's different, every district's different, every candidate's different. So where we nominated people that carried baseball bats around on television, like in New York there with Palladino, we didn't win. Where we nominated folks that had some past talking about witches or being a witch, whatever it was, we didn't win. But where we ran good fiscal conservatives that could walk, talk, chew gum, had some business experience, could get out and get the vote, like all politicians have to do, no matter what party they are, those folks won. And that's basically the bottom line. You can't just put, oh, these are Tea Party folk, these are not. I mean, Marco Rubio likely is one of the rising stars in the Republican Party right now. And you can say a lot of things, but it's hard to really say that he's not an impressive guy.
Don't you like Marco Rubio?
What I think is that all of that, now the rubber will meet the road. When they get to Washington in January, one of the heroes of the Tea Party, Michelle Bachmann, has said she's running for a party position. Already the Republican leadership said they'll oppose her. You shouldn't stand that. Don't sell out. You fight those old guys. Stand up for Michelle Bachmann. We need to see if the Tea Party is real. I encourage you to